The world is changing at a pace few could have predicted just a decade ago, and at the very center of this transformation stands BRICS, a coalition that's rapidly redefining the global landscape. What began as a simple acronym for a handful of emerging economies has evolved into a major geopolitical force, one that's now challenging the long-standing Western-dominated order. The group's rapid expansion is not just a headline, it's actively reshaping the balance of power on the world stage, with new members bringing fresh perspectives and ambitions. In 2024, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran and the UAE officially joined BRICS, marking a significant turning point for the organization. Then in 2025, Indonesia followed suit, expanding the group to what is now known as BRICS 10, a diverse coalition spanning multiple continents. Today, BRICS represents nearly half the world's population, connecting billions of people from Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and beyond. Economically, the bloc now accounts for over a third of global GDP, making it a powerhouse in international trade, finance, and development. This is no longer a symbolic club, it's a bloc with real economic and political clout, influencing decisions that affect the entire world. The momentum is undeniable. Dozens of countries are eager to join, with 23 formal applications already submitted and more nations expressing interest every month. Remarkably, this interest is spreading even into Europe, a region traditionally aligned with Western institutions. The most surprising twist: members of the European Union are now openly considering BRICS membership, a move that would have seemed impossible not long ago. This signals a profound shift, as the EU has long been a pillar of the Western alliance, central to NATO and the transatlantic partnership. The idea of EU members joining a bloc seen as a rival to the West was unthinkable a decade ago. Yet, here we are, witnessing history in the making. Why are European nations drawn to BRICS? Is it economic opportunity, political leverage, or a desire for a new global balance? What does this mean for their existing alliances, and how will it affect their relationships with the US and other Western powers? And how could this unprecedented shift reshape the future of global politics, trade and security at Sarisparen Serboder, Ahmedzubo Enmard, Idalbaden Sakanduscordina Dusinstidino. The expansion of BRICS is at the heart of a world in flux, and its story is only just beginning. At its core, BRICS stands for a multipolar world, a vision where global power is shared, not concentrated in the hands of a few. The group's name itself is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, representing some of the world's largest emerging economies. Originally, BRIC was just an investment term coined in the early 2000s to describe these fast-growing economies. But in 2009, the leaders of these nations decided to turn the idea into reality, forming a political and economic alliance. South Africa joined in 2010, making it BRICS. Their mission is ambitious: to challenge the Western-dominated global order and push for reforms in institutions like the IMF and World Bank, which have long been controlled by the US and Europe. BRICS wants a fairer system that reflects today's global realities. BRICS envisions a world with multiple centers of influence, not just one led by Washington or Brussels. They believe that a more balanced distribution of power will lead to greater stability and opportunity for all. To make this vision a reality, BRICS has created its own institutions, such as the New Development Bank and the Contingent Reserve Arrangement. These serve as alternatives to the World Bank and IMF, offering new sources of funding and support for developing nations. These structures help reduce dependence on the US dollar and Western financial systems, giving member countries more control over their own economic destinies and encouraging trade in local currencies. But BRICS isn't a single-minded bloc. Its members have different priorities and worldviews. From Russia's strong anti-Western stance, to India's focus on reform and development, to Brazil and South Africa's emphasis on social progress and inclusion. This diversity is both a strength and a challenge, fueling lively debates but also making consensus more complex. Yet despite their differences, the shared goal of building a more balanced and just world order keeps them united and moving forward. BRICS is about amplifying the voices of the global South, countries that have often been sidelined in global decision-making. It's a partnership for those seeking a seat at the global table and a chance to shape the rules of the 21st century. And as more countries express interest in joining, BRICS' appeal and its influence on the world stage continues to grow. Why is BRICS so attractive? Economically, it offers access to vast markets, new trade routes, and development financing with fewer strings attached. The new development bank provides loans without the political conditions often imposed by the IMF or World Bank. BRICS promotes non-interference, appealing to countries wanting to chart their own course. Trading in local currencies helps members avoid US dollar volatility and sanctions. Politically, joining BRICS signals ambition and a desire for greater influence. It's a platform for countries to hedge between East and West, gaining flexibility and leverage. Above all, BRICS promises strategic autonomy, a club of equals, not subordinates. This message resonates across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. That's why the line to join keeps growing. The most surprising BRICS story is now unfolding in Europe. Once seen as a global South phenomenon, BRICS now attracts growing interest from within the EU itself. At least 2 EU states have explored joining, shaking the idea of a unified and consistent European foreign policy. Turkey, a NATO member and longtime EU candidate, is the most vocal aspirant. Reports of another unnamed EU member considering BRICS show the bloc's appeal is now an internal EU challenge. Why would EU countries look east? Economic pragmatism and political frustration are key reasons. They see global power shifting and want closer ties to rising economies. For some, BRICS is about sovereignty and strategic autonomy, not abandoning the West, but diversifying partnerships. This trend challenges the solidarity expected of EU and NATO members. Turkey embodies the new geopolitical balancing act. A NATO member and longtime EU candidate, Turkey is now pursuing BRICS membership. Ankara's bid was rejected twice, partly due to its deep ties to NATO and disputes with India. Still, Turkey sees BRICS as a way to boost its influence and gain leverage with both East and West. Its actions, buying Russian missile systems, developing nuclear energy with Russia, and seeking US fighter jets, highlight its independent path. Turkey feels sidelined by the EU and misunderstood by NATO. By courting BRICS, it signals it has options beyond the West. This strategy is risky, but it maximizes Turkey's influence. Turkey isn't choosing sides, it's trying to benefit from both worlds. This approach is becoming a model for others. The era of clear-cut alliances is fading. BRICS expansion into Europe has sent shockwaves through both Washington and Brussels, raising deep concerns about the future of Western unity. For the European Union, the idea of a member state joining BRICS is more than just symbolic. It threatens to undermine the very foundation of EU unity, and could spark internal conflicts of interest, making it harder to present a united front on global issues. Meanwhile, the United States views this development as a direct challenge to the transatlantic alliance and the rules-based international order that has defined global politics for decades. In a swift and forceful response, the US announced a 10% tariff on any country that aligns itself with BRICS's anti-American policies, signaling a willingness to use economic pressure to defend its interests. For countries like Turkey, which are deeply integrated into Western economies and rely on trade with both the EU and the US, this move represents a serious threat to their economic stability and future growth. The message from Washington is unmistakable. Nations must choose between aligning with the West or facing significant consequences, both diplomatic and economic. This hardline stance is designed to deter any country from moving closer to BRICS, reinforcing the boundaries of the Western alliance. Yet, this approach also exposes a growing dilemma for the West. Loyalty among allies can no longer be taken for granted in a rapidly changing world. The West now faces a critical choice: continue to rely on pressure and deterrence, or adapt by making its alliances more attractive and relevant to its partners' evolving interests. Growing European interest in BRICS serves as a wake-up call, highlighting the need for renewed engagement and fresh strategies. The global landscape is shifting rapidly, and traditional alliances are being tested as never before. The old certainties that once defined international relations are fading, leaving the future of global alliances more uncertain than ever. BRICS' continued growth, especially into Europe, could reshape the continent and global power. If Turkey or an EU member joins, Europe's unity under the EU and NATO would be fractured. New fault lines would emerge, challenging trust and cooperation within alliances. A BRICS member inside the EU or NATO would create constant friction and division. Some argue this could make Europe a mediator between East and West, building bridges in a polarized world, but trying to please everyone risks pleasing no one. The future depends on choices made in Ankara, Brussels, and Washington. As BRICS' influence grows, its allure will only increase. The West can respond with threats or with reform and engagement. How Europe navigates this new reality will define its global role for generations.